I almost lost 15K on a Verizon commercial. The supervisor loved the song until they heard it under dialogue. Every instrument started fighting for attention, the copy ended up getting buried, and the deal was almost gone. If you've ever had a track passed over with no explanation, this is probably why. That moment almost ended my relationship with that client. I've landed dozens of placements since then, but only after I fixed this one thing. And in this video, I'll show you the exact production choices that get your music placed and not just pat on the back. It all starts with this one simple rule. In basketball, only one player can control it at a time. When everyone tries to grab for it, the whole play falls apart. Your brain can actually follow 3 different conversations at the same time very badly. And it's the same with music. But in TV, 2 of those lanes are already taken by either the dialogue or sound effects in the room. So your music only gets 1 lane to fit in. So here's the rule that changed everything for me. At any moment, only one element can really be the star. Everything else is a support. This means that your lead melody can't compete with your bass line. Your percussion can't fight with your chords. Pick a star player for each section or moment in your song and let them shine. And you can test this right now. Play any track and try to follow 3 different instruments at once. Your brain will jump between the 2, but never really focus on one element at a time. That's exactly what happens to supervisors when they hear overproduced music. Now that you understand what overproduced or overcooked sounds feel like, here's the real question we should be asking ourselves. Why do we keep doing it when we know it doesn't work? When athletes get nervous, they tend to kind of tighten up and overplay, trying to do everything at once instead of like really trusting their teammates and the plans that the coach assigned for them. I used to stack synths on top of synths, double counter melodies, adding percussion fills every chance I could, anything to avoid silence in a song. I thought the more instruments mean that it just sounded more impressive. But what I really was doing was just being scared that the track would feel empty or boring if it didn't have something changing every 4 bars. Overproduction in our songs is just a trigger from fear. We add all these layers because we don't trust our core idea can really carry the track. The solution is to flip our mindset. So instead of asking what else can I add, start asking what can I take away? Start with your strongest 4 elements, your drums, your bass, your chords, and then your lead, and then prove that they can carry the entire track before adding anything else. I rebuilt that track with a few of those elements, extra space, and a month later that same song ended up landing a placement on a different show because the supervisor could actually hear the dialogue over it. That single mind shift increased my placement rate from about 1 in 20 submissions to like 1 in every 8, especially when it came to landing sync deals. Space isn't empty, it's very powerful, and it gives your remaining elements room to breathe and give impact. Oh, by the way, and if you want expert ears on your music from real music supervisors and sync reps, join our Sync Alliance community. We help you make sure that your track passes the 1 ball test and a bunch of other things before you start pitching. Links in the description below. As a trumpet player, Miles Davis was very, very keen at this, and he actually became notorious where he would play as little as possible and it still gave a really huge impact versus what was popular at the time. He would actually think of the notes he wants to play, not play them, and then play in the spaces in between. Very cool concept. It's really, really easy to do if you're a producer at home because you can just take your melodies, get rid of the MIDI information from that melody, and then just write in those little spaces. But how do you actually train yourself to show that kind of restraint when every instinct in your body tells you you need to add more? In basketball, great teams win because every player actually knows their role and stays in their lane. When every instrument is trying to be the lead, you lose space for dialogue, which is the real star. So here's your systematic approach to actually have restraint. We have a couple different rules. The first rule is your starting lineup. Your 4 main elements, your drums, your bass, your chords, and a lead. That's your core team. Then you have the bench test, which is when you mute each part 1 by 1. If a track still feels like it works without it, that means that you need to keep it benched until it's absolutely needed. Here's another test you can do. It's called the talk test. Speak 1 full sentence over your track and lace it over your song to see if you can actually hear it clearly. If you're not, you're crowding the ball. Another method I like to use is the delay method. And essentially what you do is you record those 4 parts and then go take a walk, because letting some space between your creation process can give it enough time to breathe so that when you come back, you can listen with a different set of ears. I like to do this once every hour for about 15 minutes. There's a couple other tests you can use for your music. For instance, like the role assignment. Give each instrument a specific job. I like to have my bass hold down foundation, the drums provide the pulse and groove, chords create the harmony, and then the lead obviously carries the melody. No crossover allowed. The goal isn't to make boring music, it's to make music where every element has a specific purpose and space to fill. One of our members, Sean, actually applied these exact rules to a track that had been rejected 3 times, and after stripping it back to 4 core elements, it ended up actually landing a $4,000 placement with Adidas. These restraint techniques work, but there's still way more that we can do to make sure that the whole team is kind of coordinating with the strategy. Teams pass the ball so the star player for that play can actually score. If everyone's running the same lane, they block each other and there's no space to get to the rim. And most producers stack everything in the middle. Same pitch range, same stereo position, same rhythm. It's like having all 5 players stay in the paint. Nobody can actually move. So here's how to give your team room to operate. Stereo positioning. Spread your players across the field. Your lead and maybe your bass and drums can stay pretty close to the middle, but anything else is a supporting element and can sit towards the left or the right. Second way, your frequency lanes. Keep each instrument within its own pitch range. Something else you can do with space, the call and response arrangement. When one instrument plays a lead phrase, then you can let another instrument answer it. That way they're not fighting for the same attention. They're kind of taking turns with the ball simultaneously. This way, everybody has their own sonic 3D space where they can clearly be heard. After I started applying these kinds of techniques, my tracks went from sounding muddy to like crystal clear. And a clear mix will always sound more punchy than a loud mix. Matter of fact, one of the supervisors that visited us in our private community had mentioned that my mix actually sits perfectly with scenes because everything feels like it has a place. So essentially 80% of your track is actually going to follow that simple starting four of your core elements. These kind of basketball principles have helped hundreds of other producers land placements by thinking like a team instead of a one-man show. But even with perfectly arranged tracks, most producers still get rejected because they don't understand what supervisors are actually listening for when they evaluate music. So I interviewed over 127 music supervisors to find out their biggest secrets, and in this video, I'll show you what they said.